Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's seminar. Congratulations on being here. This is going to be some fantastic info, and I am super excited to share with all of you. So I'm going to get started because I have a lot of stuff to share. We first have to go through the disclaimer. This presentation is designed for educational purposes only and is not engaged in rendering medical advice, legal advice, or professional services. If you feel that you have a medical problem, you should seek the advice of your physician or healthcare practitioner. So let's first look at, okay, why it is that we are all here. This is what our healthcare spending is like in the US. It is off the charts. We spend more than any other country in the world, and double almost what the second one, we're almost double what the second highest does in the world. It is insane. So you would think that we have amazing health, right? I mean, everyone we look around us, we're all enjoying our health, right? No, we're not. And we all know that. So the 10 leading causes of death in the US from 1900s to 1997 had some drastic changes. So we got to think about, okay, what happened? Why did we have these changes? Because all across the board, we are seeing chronic health rise. And, we look back in the early 1900s, a little over 100 years ago, most of the things that were causes of death, it was somewhat pretty close spread across the board. There's not a whole lot of, things that are really taking center stage. Fast forward, what do we have now? These chronic diseases, where we went from a lot of infectious diseases. Now we have these chronic health problems are killing us, and it's in massive numbers. And here's the deal. It's not just in the adults. Our children are faced with chronic illnesses at astronomical rates. Over half of our children have a chronic disease and are overweight. That's our new normal child. And I don't know about the rest of you, but this is disturbing and this is not good, and it's not just, some of these, what we think simple, easy diseases. No, these are like autoimmunity is skyrocketing. We have type 1 diabetes, MS, Crohn's. These things are also going off the charts. Like everything around us, it's not looking good. Like the train that is going has really picked up steam, and where it's heading is not good. 75% of the autoimmune diseases, those happen in women. And so let's think about the implications of that, right? So the women, what else is there with women? That's where we are developed, is in our moms. That's the environment that children are developing in a very chronically ill environment. How do you think that plays out? Like in nature, if something was in a very, adverse environment, things aren't going to go well. And so when we look, what this actually implies, or what the implications of chronically ill women are children. And so we've got to turn this around. And so that's kind of like, why my mission, you hear me all the time, is I'm helping moms and I'm helping kids. So we've got to right this ship. The first time in history, do you all know what it is? Our children are sicker than us. So this, again, I'm going to keep reiterating this. This is not good. It's very disturbing and it's downright horrific. Like when I look at these stats and whenever I see, clients with their children, and it's like, and my own children, we lost 4 children. And then the 2 we have, one of them has arthrogryposis. He was born with that. It's joint contracture, so he can't move his feet and his ankles. And then our other child was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So both of our living children have pretty chronic illnesses. And then our other 4, they were not able to carry all the way to term. We lost them early. And so this is a real problem. And it's not just me and my family that has had this problem. We see this all around, and this has to change. Like we have to do something about this. This is not a good thing. So we asked them, how did this happen? Like, why is it now we have 1 in 3 of our children are overweight, and now it's 1 in 36 that has autism? Like when I was a child, it was like 1 in 10,000. You rarely heard about it. In like my 40 years of life, it's down to 1 in 36. Like, this is not good. So what happened? Well, this is what happened. we have been trained to go to our doctor and say, hey, what's wrong with me? And so they say, you've got this, you eat too much, you're drinking too much, you're short of breath, you don't exercise, this whole list of things that are wrong. And then it's like, oh, where's the pill that I can take for that? So we've been taught to have this quick fix pill mentality. And what's happening? This is what's happening. It's destroying us, and we can't get out of it. We've got to get away from this thinking of, I'm just going to go take a pill for that, because whether it's pharmaceuticals or herbals, this is not the answer. And we see this in our children. We have this plethora of diseases all over, and almost every single one of these are taking off at epidemic proportions. We have endocrine imbalances. We have mental health, depression, anxiety, metabolic disorders, autoimmunity, autism, just this whole gamut of chronic illnesses, and they all are escalating. It's time, and I'm challenging each one of you here, that it's time to rethink, what is health? What does that mean? What is food? What's medicine? What really is disease? And then to look at, okay, our genes, how do those things fit in the picture? And what is epigenetics? Like, how does all of this stuff work together? So that's why we are here. And this is who I am. This is what it is, why I do what I do. I am the founder of the Functional Perspective, and I graduated from Functional Medicine University with a certification in functional medicine. I also graduated from a coaching, health and wellness coaching with Dr. Sears Wellness Institute. I'm a mother of 6, as I mentioned, with 2 surviving children. One of those has an autoimmune disease, and I specialize in helping those who suffer with gastrointestinal and autoimmunity to learn natural methods of healing so that they can regain their health and vitality. And like the core of the company that I founded and my practice is, one, all chronic disease has a root. There's a reason why, and we're going to figure out what that reason is. And that the individual determines the outcome, that we do have a choice. We can be empowered, and we can influence how our body is responding. I do not diagnose or treat disease. Instead, I help to create health. It's about empowering others so that they can take charge of their health. This is what I do and why I do it. Because why? We need another way. The way that we are on right now, our current medical model, we see the catastrophic events in our health that's happening on a regular basis. Our children are sicker than we are. We have to change the course if we want to change the outcome. So what is this other way? Where are we going? Well, that's what I'm going to talk with you about today, and why we're going to talk about functional medicine, or approaching health functionally. It's a very naturopathic way of addressing health. And I think you're going to like it. If you're not familiar with it, then it's going to be like, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. But before we get there, I want to first, let's really look at where we are right now, the conventional medicine, because, I'm not saying that this is completely, hey, all wrong on all accounts, but let's examine it for what it is. So the National Institutes of Health defines conventional medicine as a system in which medical doctors and other healthcare professionals treat symptoms and diseases using drugs, radiation, or surgery. So, what does that really mean here? Well, the conventional approach is to establish diagnoses and then offer a treatment for each disease individually, right? And it's very specialized, and it's compartmentalized type of thinking. So it's about, okay, we're going to have this set of symptoms and this set of disease. There's your medicine for that. And then here's this other disease that you treat completely independently. And I'm sure you're all thinking here, wait, there's a problem here, right? It lacks understanding of the connection between these common issues and the impact on the progression of adverse health. There's a gross, inadequate understanding of how the disease and treatments impact other systems. It's a very extremely effective for treating acute illness, these emergent situations. We need those things in those situations. So that's what conventional medicine, it shines at. It's amazing in what it can do, and what we have, the technology and the options to treat these acute emergent situations. And we need that, absolutely. But to take that and apply it somewhere else, it's really doing a disservice to us. We would never take a fantastic golf player and put him out on a tennis court and say, hey, expect him to be a national star. We need to know where things excel at and excel at it. So that's what I'm saying when it's that we've got to go a different way. We are going down the wrong path for what we're wanting. If we need emergency care, then yes, go the conventional route. But when we're dealing with chronic illness that has happened a little bit over time, we need a different way. So I'm going to look at this. We're going to take a quick example of what it is, the two models in action, okay? We have this all over. Heart disease is like the #1 killer, right? Well, what happens with heart disease? We know it's an elevated lipid panel. We have high cholesterol. So we're going to look at these two models and see how they compare. See the approach of what happens in the conventional world and then what happens over in a naturopathic world. So the first thing that happens, you're diagnosed with the disease, and then they're going to say, okay, we got to look for ways, we got to lower your cholesterol. You've got high cholesterol, we need to lower it. So here's the medication that does that. And what does that medication do? Well, that's what we're going to find out. Does it make you healthier? That's the key question. So Lipitor, this is the most common prescribed cholesterol lowering drug. It's a statin. And what does it do? Well, it lowers your cholesterol. It's very effective at that. Cholesterol is produced in the liver in a complex series of biochemical reactions. And what the statin drugs do is they block a very critical enzyme that is needed for that whole process to work, the HMG-CoA reductase. And so now the liver cannot make the cholesterol. I mean, it does exactly what it needs. Whenever we need the cholesterol, those things work very effectively. And so this is how our conventional model works, is that you've been diagnosed with a disease. Here's your medication. We want your cholesterol to be lower. So here's how we're going to lower it. And there's your medications to do that. So let's look at this closer here. Here's the pathway to cholesterol. It takes quite a few steps here. And up there at the top, or down here at the bottom, down at the bottom, this is where cholesterol is made. So it goes through all these processes, and then we have our cholesterol. Well, the statin drugs are up there at the top. You see the red arrow, that's where the process gets blocked. So everything below that is stopped. Do you see a problem? It's not just cholesterol that's getting blocked. There's a lot of things that are getting blocked. You can probably realize the implications of that. Does it make more sense as to why when we get on a medication, the next thing we know, we're on another medication and then another and another, and why the side effects are ridiculously long? Well, of course, because you didn't just block HMG-CoA reductase. You blocked melavonic acid. You blocked melavenonate 5-phosphate. You blocked sterol, prenulated proteins. You blocked ubiquinones. You've blocked a whole gamut of processes. Those processes are needed for our body to operate healthy. So this comes in where functional medicine, naturopathic health, holistic health, approaching health functionally. Because we're going to ask the question, why? What is going on here? It's developed for the understanding of the importance of the individual approach to why we have a problem. It goes way, way back to what natural medicine is. So functional medicine is kind of like the new way to approach health naturally, which has been around for centuries, decades, long time, that, the body has an innate healing system, and we're going to tap into that healing system. So what functional medicine is actually, it's natural medicine. So just a different way to say, hey, this is natural medicine. It's going to address the root cause and look at everything in the picture. We realize that, there's many imbalances which can lead to a disease or a condition. And we also realize that, hey, one condition can now lead to many, many other imbalances and problems. It becomes this big, big circle. There's another way to look at it is we've got these causes of disease. We're going to look at this whole wheel of problems, from adrenal fatigue, nutritional deficiencies. We're going to look at things like toxins and molds, what's going on with our immune system, even the structural integrity. Has there been some sort of trauma, physical trauma? All the issues around us, which is often called the epigenetics. We're going to look at all of these influences to see how it is that what our body's doing. So when it comes to the cholesterol, we ask, okay, first, what's the purpose of cholesterol? Well, what does it do? Well, it's needed for repair and growth. Okay, so then why is the body making too much? Because our body is trying to help us heal. If we have this innate healing system, then why is it making so much? I don't need this much. Well, it's making it because there's triggers. There's something that is saying, hey, we've got a lot of damage going on. I need the repair crew here. We need someone coming here to fix the roads. So what happens if we block that? Does it stop the damage from happening? No. What it does is now we don't have the building blocks for the repair. And we've now disrupted other metabolic pathways. I mean, it's much like a road crew. We have our roads and we've got these potholes. Well, that means we need to have the road crew come out, right? And what happens when we have the road crew come out? Well, it kind of slows down traffic for a while, doesn't it? It gets extremely aggravating. Sometimes you got to do some detours. But what if we said, screw that? Like, we don't need the road crew. The road isn't going to get fixed, and it's actually going to be more problematic than having that temporary road crew there. Our body was not meant to constantly be under attack, but that's what happens. So if we cut off the road crew, we're still going to have a broken road. The same happens in our body. And this is what happens when we get on these statin drugs. There's so many other drugs as well. Whenever you have a medication or something that there's even nutraceuticals out there. This isn't just pharmaceuticals. You've got something that's going to block pathways. This is what's going to happen. You're going to have, you start with this diagnosis. You can really start anywhere on this wheel. And then you get your medication prescribed. And now what happens? Well, you start having low energy. Why? Because you've just blocked a bunch of processes. And then you start having muscle loss. When you have energy, you're not exercising. You start having pain and even less activity. And then it's like you're not eating well, you just don't feel well. And it's just this endless, endless circle. And that's why we have more and more people on drugs. In the 1980s and 94, there was about 1.7% of the people that were on a statin medication, and about 4% were on 5 or more drugs, okay? This is in the late 80s, early 90s. This isn't very long ago. 2011, 2014, it goes up to 14.3% on the statins. That's a huge increase. And 10.9 on 5 or more drugs. Again, a huge increase. This is not the right direction. So we have to ask that question. Okay, we're going to the doctor because we don't feel well. We're wanting to get well. They give us these medications. Aren't they supposed to make us better? And how can it make us better if we're stopping processes in our body? Something doesn't add up, right? It doesn't take a college degree to understand that something's not right here. We're going to go back to look at the 10 leading causes of death in our country from the 1900s to 97. Look at the difference here. What were the changes that we made over this last century? Well, back in the early 1900s, we started enriching and fortifying foods. So some of that, it helped because it changed from these infectious diseases and communicable diseases because we were lacking some of our vitamins and minerals. But what happened? It started changing things, right? Because whenever we have stuff where it doesn't belong, even good things, our body is going to respond. It's going to create an immune reaction. And we can see that immune reaction in our chronic health today. All of those things are because our body has a battle it is fighting. That's the immune response. And so whether it's because we have altered foods, because of the medications, because of the toxins, all of those things play a role. All of those epigenetic factors play a role. We become very industrialized where we aren't outside much. We spend a lot of our time as very sedentary, or we're inside, not in the sun. All of those things play a role in our health, and we are seeing it in our children. So this is why those of us here at the functional perspective, why we prefer a very, very different approach, because we realize that other path is not going to help us in these chronic health situations. When we have an acute situation, absolutely, we're going to go that route. But in these chronic situations, we realize that we have to get to the underlying cause and dig deeper into what it is that is going on under the surface. We kind of like picture a really tall tree, and it's got, the leaves, and we have the trunk and the branches. Well, Is it just the things that we see up here above? No, we have all the stuff down below, the soil, we have the roots, we have the rain, the sunshine. All of those things play a role into the health of that tree. When we start altering something in any of those areas, the tree is going to suffer. There's going to be some sort of consequence on that. Or, I mean, it could improve. There's going to be a consequence either way. And we can't take that very lightly. We need to realize in our health, it's the exact same thing. These chronic health conditions, we need to look at the systems, look at the different parts. We're going to look at the leaves and the branches and the roots and the soil and the sun, and then put them all into context and figure out, okay, what's going on here? What is the big picture? The very basic principles of functional medicine is that it's very personalized. It's individualized. This isn't a one size fits all, and it's not about the diseases. The disease is actually at the end of the equation. When we focus on the disease, we're focusing on the wrong end, because we have to look at, why do we have this label? The disease is just a label, and it's where things have become what many consider dysfunctional, but I don't really consider it dysfunctional, because that's a natural response to our body. Our body is trying to fight a battle, and there's going to be collateral damage whenever these things go on long term. So we don't want it to stop fighting the battle. That's where the acute medicine, if it's an acute situation, yes, we need it to stop right now. Chronic long-term health, applying that same principle, is going to lead to catastrophic events, and we are seeing that. Research shows that disease and illness is composed of a very complicated network. And of course, we don't really need the research, because it's kind of common sense, but even research backs this up, that things are very complicated and they are all intertwined. And so when we approach health functionally, we are utilizing that extra knowledge that we have to figure out, okay, where are these biochemical processes connected? What can we do to support these processes? The World Health Organization defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not just merely, oh, you don't have a disease. But we've kind of been led to believe that, okay, you're healthy unless you have this diagnosis of a disease, and that's just not the case. The two main questions and the core foundation of approaching health functionally is, we ask this: is there something this person needs to eliminate? Is there some sort of a toxin? Are they having allergic reactions? Is there an infection? Is it just something maybe that it's poor diet or stress going on? Excuse me, I need to take a drink here, because right now I need some water. I need to eliminate my dry mouth. So the second question that we ask is there an unmet individual need or requirement that this person needs for optimal function? Like just now, I needed some water for my mouth to function properly. But when we take those same questions, this is at the core, always ask, is there something that we need to get out of our pathway? Is there a pothole along our road? Is there something I need to fix that pothole? That is the foundation of approaching health functionally. So now that we understand that, let's go back to our statin illustration and let's see, how does that work out here in a functional model? So we're going to ask, okay, why does the body make cholesterol? Well, it needs it for repair, right? And then what is causing that response? Why is it saying, hey, why do I need to repair? Why isn't my road fine? Like, why is what's going on here? And then we're going to ask, okay, what needs to get out of the way? So what do we need to remove so that our body is no longer having this battle? And where is it needing my support? So your body is like this, your immune system is like this internal army. So it's like, which part of our army? Is it the Army? Is it the Navy? Who needs support? Where do I need to send reinforcements to help my body win this battle? So we're going to ask why. What is it? Is that this person needs to eliminate? Well, when we have the cholesterol, the first thing we're going to know is that, hey, there's going to be inflammation, because inflammation is what sends that signal saying, hey, we need repair. Things such as painful joints, the arthritis type things such as heart disease, carditis, and then things like gastritis, things in your gut. All of these itises, these are saying, hey, your body is on fire. Your immune system is like supercharged here. We have got some inflammation that we need to burn out. So all of these different things are all connected. And so it goes back to that one condition, right? and many, many underlying reasons. And then that one condition leads to many other things. This whole circle, this whole wheel of issues. So when we hear this inflammation, we're going to go look at, okay, what's causing it? Is it the toxins? Do we have some toxins that the body's trying to get rid of the body and having a really hard time? Is there some sort of hormone dysfunction that's leading to an imbalance? And then so many of these become a very catch-22 type situation. So the inflammation, one of the things that we see with inflammation is that it's going to be causing pain. And it's because we have these potholes. It's like at the road. If we're going down the road, going over these bumps, yeah, some of those bumps can be extremely damaging and very difficult in our cars. Like, oh my goodness, that bump was really hard. So all of these things here, it's throughout our entire body. And here are some different ways that we can see that, hey, there's some inflammation going on. We have poor memory. We know that there's going to be some brain inflammation. Whenever we have soreness, like in our hips, we know, okay, there's going to be some inflammation going on there. Whenever we have our hormones are out of balance, we know there's inflammation. Whenever we have darkening of our skin or thickening of our skin, poor vision, whenever we're weak, whenever there's any kind of like pain in our feet or ankles, cancer, all of these things are inflammation. So we know that, okay, our body is calling for help. There's damage going on here. And so we go back to that cholesterol. We have that whole long process that our body has to go through to get us that repair, those repair materials. And so if we're blocking that from a functional perspective, we realize that, oh my goodness, if we block that, we are blocking all of these other things, right? Well, what are some of these other things? Inhibition of CoQ10. You've probably heard of CoQ10. It's something that's, especially 5-10 years ago, was kind of big. Statin drugs not only inhibit cholesterol, they also inhibit CoQ10. And why is this important? Because CoQ10 also leads to oxidation, to this inflammation. And now it sets off a whole nother chain of reactions. Things such as fatal cardiomyopathy, congestive heart failure, exhaustion, cancer, myopathy, depression that's resistant to antidepressants, high blood pressure, gum disease and tooth loss, hair loss, liver disease, sudden complete memory loss or amnesia, cataracts, and there's a whole, the list goes on and on. But these things here, somebody that's had some of these things, right? These things are some of those things that are on these epidemic rises. So let's look at this. The illustration of this is that it's kind of like we have an engine in our car, and it's like it's not running well. It's running rough. And your mechanic says, okay, well, here's the problem is that spark plug, this cylinder here, it's got some damage to it. But that's okay. We're just gonna pull that off. We're not gonna use that cylinder. We're just gonna cut that out. We're gonna take out the spark plug, disconnect the wire. We don't need that cylinder. All the other cylinders are fine. We're just gonna run on that. I know none of you would go with that. You guys would look at that mechanic like, you have got to be kidding me. Give me my car, I'm out of here, and I am not paying you a dime. Like, there's no way any of us would go with that, right? But that's what we're doing whenever we have these medications. We're just like, we're just going to block it. You don't need it. You're good. Like, really? No. So this is what it looks like. There's 12 processes that are disrupted when that HMG-CoA reductase is inhibited. And that's going to inhibit the liver's ability to make the cholesterol, which is now going to lead to adverse health. And what did we just say? The adverse health? Well, that leads to inflammation, but that leads to our body wanting to make more cholesterol. And now we're inhibiting CoQ10. This is just one of the things that it inhibits also. And that cycle goes round and round. But guess what happens? Our body's still saying, hey, I need more of that HMG-CoA reductase. I need that process, right? It's sending more signals to that process that's getting stopped. And so what happens? You need more of the drug because your body is like, hey, it's sending the emergency crew there, but there's a roadblock. And so I think, well, maybe the more I can send, I can get more through. It makes sense now, right? How all of these different things can lead to one disease, and we have one disease leads to many other problems. So what do we do here in the functional approach? Well, we're going to start with an in-depth history. Like, how do we get to what it is? How do I get to, okay, I understand that, but it's so complex. Well, we're going to go into a very, very in-depth history. So anytime you're approaching health naturally, whether it's through functional medicine, holistic medicine, naturopathic, these are the things to expect, and this is the pathway that you need to take, is an in-depth. And when I say in-depth, we're going to go back to your mom's health, grandma's health, like the mothers especially, because like we mentioned earlier, that's the environment that we develop in. That is our world. That's, where we are being influenced. We're going to look at other family history as well, because there are some genetic components. And not that our genes mean that, okay, those are set in stone. We can influence how our genes express themselves. We're still going to look at those clues there. We're going to look at life events, stresses. Stresses come in so many forms. It's not just, we think I've got this stress. There's a lot of perceived stress. We have job stresses, relationship stresses. We have stresses with finances, stresses with, where we live, the environment. There's just everything falls almost under that stress environment, illnesses, sicknesses. And there's what are considered good stresses, good events, births of child, or, marriages and, things that we celebrate. That's still stress on our body. Food and activity and sleep, toxic exposures. There's just all sorts of things we're going to look at. It's not just chemicals. So all of these things are the epigenetics. And these are things that determine how our body responds. Are we going to have an immune response? Are we going to be promoting health? Are we going to be in a sympathetic, that stressful fight or flight mode? Or are we going to be in that parasympathetic, that peaceful rest, digest, rejuvenate state? So these are the things, whenever we approach health functionally, that we look at that huge picture and we dig deep. And here's how I do it. So I utilize, one of the tools that I utilize is a living matrix. And so this is how we put all these things together. It's like, okay, we have this history, we have all this stuff. Now what do we do with it? Well, this is one of the tools that I utilize. I utilize a lot of other tools as well, but this is one of the big ones that I use to let's start to organize and get this data together here. And so it gives you an overview. Like you see over here, the first thing it starts with is, let's look at your overall, where are you at the overall scale here? So what is your functional health score? And we do just like a general functional health assessment. And then we're looking at, okay, what's your timeline? We're going to put all of these different events into a timeline and see where are there patterns that arise. Oh my goodness, this is what triggered this. I was really well until this particular point. And now we can really hone into, okay, what changed then? What was it that changed at this particular point in your life? And started looking for clues. So when we organize things in a timeline, it really helps to put things into context and for us to really pinpoint what things are. And then we have what we call the matrix. And that is, we know certain things fall under certain areas. Like we have defense and repair, we have energy, transport, communication. So we understand, certain things fall, and they usually fall in multiple categories that we can kind of really see. Like in this particular client, they had a lot of stress going on in the defense and repair. The transport seemed to be pretty good, but they had different areas where their body was really needing some extra help. And we really needed to hone in and say, okay, why is it it's having problems in defense and repair? But here's a caveat to that. You see where the transport looks like it's going pretty well, that doesn't mean that we don't look at that. Because if there's a lot of defense and repair, there's a couple different things that could be for that. We're going to start asking those questions, why? We turn into the 2 and 3 year olds. Why? Why? Well, why is that? So I love it when people ask me why? And because that's what's going on constantly in my head. It's like, we're going to say, why is that? Why is the body doing that? What would it do in a normal situation? So we start asking those questions, then we start to put those things all into context. So we are looking at all of these different areas, and we figured, okay, which part of this wheel do we really need to focus on? And we're going to make sure that we have information in all of these. Sometimes we think, well, I don't have any problems here. I don't have any structural problems. And then we start thinking, well, you know what? There was that time that I fell off my bike and crashed my bike, and we did have to go to the hospital. There wasn't anything broken, but it's still some trauma. So we're going to look at all of those things, look at everything and not disregard anything. And we go back to, we're going to ask, what's the purpose here? Like in the cholesterol, what is the purpose? Why does my body, what is the purpose of my blood sugar? Why is it giving me more energy? Or why is my blood sugar unstable? My hormones, why are these high? Why does my body make these? All of those, we're going to ask that question. So in that cholesterol, we're going to say, why is it? Well, if we take the processes away and we block the very building blocks that our body needs for repair, it's going to lead to a really bad outcome. If we stop that road crew from coming, that road is going to break down. And it's not just going to be the road, but now cars. Your car is going to fall apart faster. If you continue on those really rough, bad roads, you're going to, like, you know, your tires are going to pop. You could break axles. I mean, it could be really, really bad. And so the same thing with our body. So I'm going to also share this with you. This is something that's very important because we talked about the CoQ10. There are so many other things that our medications will block. And so I have this on my website, and I want you to go there and make sure you get this, share this with others. It's at thefunctionalperspective.com/resources. And it's a 2-page, this is just the picture of 1 page, but it's 2 pages, and it's just a quick reference. There's other resources as well that get into a lot more details and more information. This kind of gives you an idea of, okay, I'm taking these medications. What are some of the potential nutrient deficiencies that I may have? And what are some other health problems that this can lead to? So if you are on these medications, take this, talk about these things with your doctor and say, look, I'm concerned about this. Let's look into this. You know, do I have a vitamin D or vitamin B12? I'm on these antacids. I'm on these PPIs. These things are notorious for leading to a B12 deficiency. They stop your stomach acid. Do we need stomach acid? Absolutely. That's like the first thing that our body needs to help set up a good GI tract. So when we have these chronic GI issues, hormonal imbalances, autoimmunity, almost anything that we know, where's the fuel go into first? We got the fuel tank, right? If we start blocking the hoses out of the fuel tank, our car is not going to run well. And so we have to ask first, okay, why is there a problem? So why am I in discomfort? So we need to approach this stomach acid issue, this reflux, the heartburn, all of those things. When we change our perspective, it's a very, very different picture. So look at these things, you know, get this resource, share it with others, because it's very important when you are on these things, especially long-term. You know, some of these things short-term, that's what we need. We're in an acute situation. Long-term is where you're going to have problems. And so I encourage you, please, please, please get this, because this is extremely important if we are going to change the ship, change the direction that our children and our future generations are going to be on. So what are some of the different conditions and some of the different things that we look at in the functional medicine and functional health world? Oh, I went too far here. Sorry about that. So we're going to look at things like, you know, the whole gamut of issues, things such as GI disorders. We're going to look at, okay, we've got SIBO on the rise. All of these things are connected. We're going to look at hormonal imbalances, cardiometabolic imbalances, neurological, things such as depression, attention deficit disorder, migraines, things such as IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic pancreatitis, reflux, skin disorders, psoriasis, eczema. All of those things we can look at, because we're not looking and trying to treat the disease. We're not trying to treat, the ADHD. We're not trying to give you a drug for that because there's an imbalance in neurotransmitters. We'll say, hey, things are manifesting because we have this ADHD label. But we're going to ask why? What's going on in the body that is going to cause that kind of reaction? So if we have a window pane that's broken, we're going to say, okay, well, what caused that break in the window? It didn't just spontaneously break. Well, let's look at it. There's a hole about the size of a tennis ball. My guess is it wasn't a football that went through the window, right? It probably wasn't a golf club. Well, I guess it could have been, but it probably wasn't a tire that went through the window. So we can look at the clues and figure out, using some critical thinking skills, to what's going on. And we have the science behind it is amazing. The things that we know and can completely confirm that we can, when we look at things naturally, is just off the charts amazing. Go to PubMed and search for whatever search health term you're dealing with, and you'll be astounded at the research that's out there. So all of these things we look at, and we're going to look at them very personalized. So we're not going to say, oh, you have ADHD. Well, here's the protocol for that. No, it doesn't work that way. You have hypothyroid, you got Hashimoto's, here's your protocol for that. No, it doesn't work that way. Are there some general rules and guidelines? Absolutely. Absolutely. There's things that are foundational that are going to be pretty much across the board. But when it comes to restoring health and vitality, getting things back on track, it is individual. There's not a protocol that fits everybody. And so I caution you that whenever you are looking for someone to help you, and I would love for it to be, be me, but if, that doesn't work out, please, 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 please make sure that you're not just getting that one size fits all protocol that they use for everyone because, oh yeah, I have all these, SIBO, this is the protocol I use, this helps everyone. It doesn't work that way. That's not how it works because you all don't have the exact same epigenetic factors. Your mothers, you don't have all the same mothers. And even so, if you do have the same mothers, even in twins, there's even studies out there, and we see it in practice, that you have different life experiences. And so please make sure that, whatever you're doing, that it's very individualized. Because this is really the core of natural medicine, is that it's individual. It's our own unique experiences. We have our own biochemical makeup. We have our own experiences that influence our genes and how they are expressed. So the things that are across the board is we're going to address things such as, okay, the food. We all need quality food. We all need to put in pure, unadulterated food into our bodies, just like we all put in gasoline into our cars. We don't put in water-tainted gasoline into our cars and say, oh, it's going to run okay. We would never do that. But when it comes to our food, we think it's okay. It doesn't matter what you eat. That's false. That's a myth. We're going to look at, and across the board, is stress. We're going to remove stressors. So if there's a lot of tension going on, that needs to be removed. If you're not getting sleep, you need to make sure that there's quality sleep. So across the board, no matter what you have, yes, you've got to have quality sleep. We got to make sure that we have quality nutrition. We got to make sure that the activity is appropriate for you. And almost always in the chronic health situations, it's actually not more, it's generally less. And here's the reason why. Because whenever we have extremely strenuous activity and high activity, that puts us towards that catabolic, that fight or flight mode, that stressful sympathetic state. We cannot heal if we're in that state. And so while we need activity, we need it so that it keeps us in that parasympathetic state. So this is something that's very crucial, and I see an awful lot is a lot of overtraining, or we think, oh, we've got to do this, we've got to do all this exercise, and we take it to the extreme. Everything needs to be in moderation. So across the board, every protocol, it's moderation. Those are the general things that are the foundation and the core skeleton of any protocol. So while some of these protocols, they're amazing, and yes, they have a lot of great things, every single one of them needs tweak. And so we take that core and that foundation. And so let's look at some of like the personalized things, like lifestyle plans. We're going to look at different things in your lifestyle. What are some things that we can change, like your diet, your food, and the exercise? We're going to look at stress management tools. What are some things that you need to address stress? And like I said, stress is more than just we think, oh, I've got stress at work. There's a lot of things that fall under that stress umbrella. So we look at all of those things together. Detoxing. Detoxing is the number one that's not a one size fits all. We have to be careful on detox. And the other thing is that you have to first make sure your detox pathways are open and running. It's sort of like a toilet. I know this one kind of gets, this is probably the one illustration almost everybody cringes on and they don't like, but it's the best illustration that I have right now. If you've got a better one, please share it with me, because I would love a different one, but this is basically what it is. You've got a clogged up toilet. Do you keep using it? Do you take the plunger and just like ram it in there? No, like you're careful because you don't want things to overflow anymore. You gently unclog it. And then we use it for eliminating things. We don't keep continuing to eliminate stuff in a clogged toilet. What's going to happen? It's going to overflow and become really, really nasty now. It's going to become a mess. The same when it comes to detoxing. We have to make sure that the pathways that our body uses to detox and actually eliminate things, that those things are working. Or else we have what? Chronic health. You've all been there, or many of you, right? Where I was doing well, I did this detox, and oh my goodness, I feel worse now than I ever did. Well, yeah, we have to make sure things are open. We got to make sure that supplements, excuse me, I need to get some water again. Excuse me. Supplements, nutritional supplements. Number one, that need to be quality. That's across the board. Two, they need to be very personalized. So while you may have ADHD and I may have ADHD, our supplement could be regime and what we're going to use could be very, very different because of those biological processes, because of what's going on. And so that needs to be very individualized. The other thing that it needs to be is temporary. Just because you have a diagnosis, just because you have this genetic factor, just because of whatever it is, doesn't mean that you take this now for life. Okay, there's some things that there are some exceptions to that. There's very, very few exceptions though. like 99% of the time, no. You're not going to just be on some supplement or drug for life. They're meant to get us over the edge. They're that temporary road crew. The road crew, once the road is fixed, do they stay out there on the road? No, they go, they leave, they get out there as fast as they can, or at least, not as fast as we would like them, but we need to have that same approach with supplements that, okay, look, you've done your job. I'm out. Now I'm going to utilize my lifestyle, my diet, managing my stress to keep myself where it needs to be, and then use supplements as needed when I know that, I need this. So that's extremely important. And I cannot stress that enough. And this even happens with any kind of botanical herbal remedies. Like when we take things, approach things naturally and focus functionally, we're going to be using herbs. We're going to be using nature, because these things work synergistically, and our body recognizes these things like, oh, this is what I need. This is my fellow soldier. Look, he's got the right uniform. I'm not using is that the fellow soldier here? What is that? It has to try to recognize what is, oh, you are, this is synthetic. Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, maybe you can do the same job. No, we're going to use things that are in nature. But even then, the same thing holds true, that we don't just take these things for life. These things, the herbs and stuff can be extremely potent, and we need to make sure that everything is in balance. So that's the core of a personalized plan, because we know that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. This is something else that functional naturopathic medicine is like the gold platinum winner here. This is where it excels. So what's the research have to say about this? Is it just something that, we can make this claim? Well, no. 93% of diabetes is out of prevention. There was a study published in the Journal of Health and Economics, the value of disease versus treatment. And it found that the demand value of prevention was always exceeded that of the treatment. Always. A study published in the Archives of Internal Medicine, it reports significant results. And these are the results here. From them not smoking, from eating a healthy diet, from exercising, moderate exercise, and maintaining a healthy weight, 93% diabetes prevention, 81% heart attack prevention, 50% stroke, and 36% cancer. And there was another study published in Lancet that followed 30,000 participants across 52 countries. And they had similar results with a 90% prevention rate of all heart disease with lifestyle changes, which makes complete sense, right? When we start looking at the conventional approach, when we block stuff, can you imagine if we supported all of those pathways in that cholesterol? And that's just the cholesterol. There's so much more that goes into it than just the cholesterol. So if we're supporting all of those pathways, can't you see how amazing it could be? This is the same with any chronic illness. We've talked about heart disease and all the contributing factors. Genetics basically kind of loads the gun. This is what Dr. Hyman, one of his famous quotes is that genetics loads the gun, but environment is what pulls the trigger. And so it's a great illustration, because just because we have our genes, we can still influence as to when those triggers are pulled. Okay, so things such as high blood pressure, high blood sugar, abnormal cholesterol, all these contributing factors contribute to heart disease, all of these different things, but they're usually treated in isolation of one another. So when we start putting them all into context, it's amazing the difference that we can have. These simple diet modifications. What are the different kinds of foods that we can take and put into our bodies? It's just making sure that we are eating our phytonutrients, 8 to 10 servings of a colorful rainbow of colors of fruits and vegetables is going to help maximize our body's ability to fight diseases astronomically. It's going to give them those armies that it needs. It needs the phytonutrients. It needs the antioxidants, those vitamins and minerals and fiber. All of those things help to fight inflammation. We need to make sure that we are stabilizing our blood sugar. We don't want highs and lows, whether we're diabetics or not. Like by the time we've been diabetic, our blood sugar has been unstable for a long time. These things don't happen just, today I'm a diabetic. No, there were signs, there was things going on long before that we need to make sure that we are stabilizing these things. So how do we do that? We can incorporate the variety also of types of foods, the proteins, healthy fats and healthy carbohydrates at every meal. We're not taking excessive amounts of only high protein, only high carbs, everything in balance and moderation. And especially with blood sugar and any of things, but with our blood sugar is fiber. We need to have the fiber. The average American adult is only getting about 15 grams of fiber a day. We need to work at least to 50 or more of foods with lots of variety of vegetables, nuts and seeds, those kinds of things. We need to get more fiber. And processed foods, we need to eliminate those. Have you ever thought about why is it those things can sit on the shelf so long? Like, any of you have ever gardened or fresh foods, even if you go get the fresh foods, some of the fresh foods out of the produce department, how long do they last? I mean, do they sit and last fine forever, for months and months on end in your cabinets? No. Those processed foods have been altered, and things have been added to keep them from breaking down. So if they can't break down on the shelf, think about that in your body. What's going on in your body? What does it need then to access these nutrients? Are these nutrients even bioavailable? So there's a lot of problems if we have these convenience processed foods. We've got to eliminate those. So that's another across the board. We've got to get rid of eliminated foods. We need to eliminate the hydrogenated fats, like the fats that have been altered, because it's just the same as the altered, foods, these fats. I mean, it's a food as well. Our body doesn't recognize it. And it can be very, very problematic. Instead, we make sure that we're getting, natural, healthy foods, a good variety of healthy balance of omega-3s and omega-6s. We got to have these things all in balance. Excuse me. I think that I need some more water. We also need to address anxiety. And why is anxiety so important, or any sort of mental health imbalances? Because it's directly tied to our gut. There's the gut-brain connection. And a lot of times we don't think of that. And this is another one that's very compartmentalized in the conventional world. It approaches it by, okay, we're going to alter these neurotransmitter pathways. We're going to block stuff. We're going to ramp stuff up. Just like cholesterol, there's a lot of problems whenever we start doing that, right? So from the functional perspective, we're going to say, let's look at why these transmitters are imbalanced. We know that to make these transmitters, we need things called cofactors. These cofactors generally are other vitamins and minerals. Sometimes there are other things that our body makes, but usually it's going to be some vitamins and minerals. So we need those cofactors. Well, that's where we start supporting things, is what does our body need? Where's the army needing more help? Where can I send more reinforcements? Instead of blocking off pathways. So, we're going to look at the gut health. Why? Because the fuel system, where does the body get those cofactors? Your gut. So it's vital that we have an optimal GI tract so that our neurotransmitters can work well. But what happens whenever they get out of balance? It becomes a catch-22, because there's this bidirectional pathways that go back and forth. And so there's signals that are sent back and forth. So once we get into where there's an imbalance, it gets to be this hamster wheel that can be very difficult to overcome and to get out of. So we got to look at that gut-brain connection and address all of those different issues. The serotonin is primarily made in the gut. We see it more so than the brain. That's a neurotransmitter. Do you think about the serotonin SSRIs? So we have to look at the entire picture. There's a lot of doctors that even will argue, saying, hey, the gut is our second brain. And it realizes that, hey, the dysfunction there is going to lead to brain dysfunction. At some point, we're going to have anxiety, depression, irritability, the hyperactivity. All of those things are tied to the gut. So that's why it makes it so, so important that we are getting our nutrients. Because when we look at the different mental health issues, that there's nutrient deficiencies. And so we have to make sure that we're getting plenty of B12, folate, zinc, copper, EHA, omega-3s, vitamin D, vitamin B6s, riboflavin, all those things in balance. Any of them, whether it's too much or too little, we can have too much and too little of these things. They need to be in balance. So what are some ways that we can find some of these things? Are things like shellfishes, organ meats, the nuts, the seeds, berries, the rainbow. You see here on the screen a rainbow of colors. We need a rainbow, whether it's a rainbow of fruits and vegetables, everything a rainbow. We need the different colors. Those things are going to have a different variety of nutrients. And here's the really awesome thing from nature is that when we get these nutrients in the foods in nature, they're going to be in a really good balance that works synergistically. And so, instead of having to say, okay, I need this much vitamin B and trying to get these pills to all work out so that they all work in harmony, we can just go to nature because we're going to get these things in a really, really good balance. So the other thing we have are skin issues. So what's the deal with the chronic skin issues? Well, again, these go back to the gut. Cortisol is one of the big things that's noted to be excess whenever it comes to chronic skin issues. And the cortisol is another gut-related hormone. And it also plays a role in our circulation. And excess levels can be very deadly. So circulation, that goes throughout our entire body, including the brain. So there's many studies that examine the relationship between the stress and health, and the results are alarming. But they really shouldn't be, because we know that stress, our body can't heal itself. So we should never expect a healthy body in long-term chronic stress. And I don't think that we need a study to prove that. Like, we know there's two states. The fight or flight, we're getting away from a lion. I'm not going to expect to make a baby while I'm getting away from a lion, right? I'm trying to get away from my health. We're not going to just sit down to a good meal when I have a lion chasing me. So of course, stress is going to lead to chronic health issues. And we really see this a lot of times manifest through the skin. It damages our immune system, and it increases our risk of diabetes and obesity and very poor cognitive function. Our mental health also is going to be challenged in that. So all of these things are connected. The skin is connected to the gut and to our anxiety and to our hormone imbalances. All of these things, play a role. But the other thing we need to look at also with skin infections is that there could be a bacterial viral component to these sort of things, or a fungus. So we're going to look at things such as herpes and shingles and what's going on here under the surface. Are there another added component? Antibiotics are typically used for treating a lot of these infections. However, what do? They can weaken our own immune system, and then which leads to more chronic illnesses. So when these things are being used inappropriately, we just open the door for more chronic health issues. So it's always, always, always important to get to the root. So functional medicine, that's what we do, is we're going to get to the root. And some of the big things that we use a lot of times in these skin issues are tea tree oil is one of my favorites, with coconut oil. It's very potent antifungal and can be applied right to the skin and after showering. We got to be careful not to use too much. I usually use the MCT with the coconut oil because it's going to absorb like almost instantly, as opposed to like the really good fresh pressed or unrefined virgin coconut oil. I often use just the MCT. You can get it as MCT, or you can get, I think, the fractionated coconut oil. Also, another one of my extreme favorites, these are all my extreme favorites actually, is witch hazel. Witch hazel and chamomile is really nice for inflammation. I like to do witch hazel and a little bit of lavender essential oil for sunburns. And so that one works really, really good for me. I just use like one tiny little drop in my whole bottle of witch hazel, and then I will put in aloe vera, like the aloe vera, like at a fresh aloe vera plant, and I will blend it up in the blender with the witch hazel, and just like a stem, not the whole entire plant, but like a big stem of it. The aloe vera with my witch hazel does absolute wonders for sunburns. And then apple cider vinegar is another one that I like for when it comes to fungals. And this is external that I like to use as internal. Sometimes there can be histamine, so I'm always careful with the apple cider vinegar whenever we use that internally. But externally, it works amazing. Those three are like some of my favorites. Whenever I see the skin issues, I'm like, okay, is there some sort of nutrition component? I'm going to make sure that we're ruling out allergies, because when we have the allergies, that sets another immune response. And so now we can't get the nutrients, which now leads to having deficiency in nutrients, can lead to these other things. So that's how we kind of start getting upstream. I'm going to look at things like, okay, are we getting enough vitamin C and anti-inflammatory foods? Enough iron and vitamin E. And then the one is, are we being hydrated? We have a problem here, or it's very common here in the US, is to be dehydrated. We're not getting adequate amounts of water and a healthy balance of electrolytes. And then of course with skin issues, the other tip is to avoid sugars. Sometimes the natural sugars we can get by with, but oftentimes even the things we find in nature, we have to avoid them for a certain amount of time. So it's important to always look at these things all in context, and that's some of the things that we look for whenever we see these skin issues. Oh, I forgot my screen here. So there it is. The tea tree oil, coconut oil, they're very, very potent antifungals. The witch hazel and chamomile, also witch hazel and aloe vera, apple cider vinegar. These are just some really good natural ways to start helping with the chronic skin issues. But do they get to completely, we need to figure out why there was a problem. So some of these are kind of in between. They can help relieve, but we also need to get to the underlying issue, why there is a problem to begin with. Stress management, why it's so important is because it damages our immunity. It increases our risk of diabetes, obesity, and poor cognitive function, as I mentioned earlier. And then detoxification, which we kind of talked about a little bit, but I want to stress it again. Our body houses a number of detoxing methods. And so it's important that we are addressing those elimination pathways and making sure that they are opened up, because we don't want to be causing this to overreact, because those things are not going to be able to get out and they're going to recirculate in your body. So this is very, very important to make sure that we are addressing all areas of detox. Supplementation, I'm going to hit again that these are temporary. We don't want to be taking these things just because it's not a pharmaceutical. Swapping out pharmaceuticals for nutraceuticals and herbals, and we're going to say, hey, this is natural, we're going to end up spinning in circles. You know, it's important that whenever we are looking for that magic pill, whether it's pharma or herbals, we're going to lose out on the full potential of our body. This is crucial to remember, that we've got to change from, is there a pill for that? These pills for that are killing us. These pills for that are causing chronic illnesses in our children and in our lives. So whatever it is, please make sure that whatever we're doing when it comes to supplements, they're very specific and they're for short term. Only on exception are they long term. So what can you expect if you're like, okay, I'm ready to take this different approach? What is it you can expect? This is what you can expect, is that, okay, first, we need to get some clarity to make sure that, hey, are we going to be able to work with you? Because not every functional health practitioner can work with everybody. They're not specialized, or they don't necessarily equipped for everything under the sun. A lot of them, yes, they can pretty much help for the most part, because when we look at it differently, then yes, it opens up the door of what we can help. But just make sure that, okay, you need to first make sure that that you guys can work together. Second is, there should be a very in-depth history, right? And that then you're going to put this all together, and almost always you're going to expect at least an hour, hour and a half, sometimes 2 hour appointment, because you're going to go through this initial consult of, let's look at these pieces. Do we have all the pieces? Because there's only so much you can get whenever you fill out a form. Do we have all this stuff? And then let's start putting this in context, because we're working together. We are co-creating health. This is not the practitioner telling you, okay, this is what you're going to do, da, 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 da. No, this is a team effort, and you are in the driver's seat, because this is your health. And so then we're going to look at, okay, is there lab testing we need to do? You know, there's a lot of clues we can get from the general lab test, because the lab test, which we should have covered on, I had to take out slides since it got to be extremely long, is there's so many clues in our general lab test. What we have as normal on these labs, that's just what's common. That's not what's optimal and what's healthy. So we need to look at the ranges differently. There's many lab results that say you're normal, but it is very, very unhealthy. And the thyroid one is one that I look at, I usually bring up the most, because you have this extremeness, and it's like, that is not healthy. So generally speaking, it's much closer to the middle of your ranges. And there's some exceptions that are really the optimal. So we look for clues in that. And then there's some other lab tests that we can do, like stool tests, dietary antigen testing, intestinal barrier testing, OAT tests with organic acid testing, genetic testing. There's, heavy metals. There's a lot of different specialized testing that we can do. So look at, those kinds of tests in addition. And generally speaking, they can range from, $100 to several hundred or over $1,000. It just really depends on what it is. Sometimes insurances are now covering it more and more. But those are things to be on the aware of, that these are potential tests that you could would be very helpful in your journey. And then also you should expect a good nutritional plan. Like, what's a good food plan? Like, we know real food, right? But sometimes what's good for me is not good for you. What's good for my child isn't good for my other child or your child. And so even though these are healthy, good, whole, real foods, we need to look at, what is your body responding to? Is it right now a food that's causing inflammation in your body? We need to address that. Lifestyle and activity, we need to make sure that we are looking at all those pictures and getting a plan, having someone help us, guide us through, giving us a heads up, having a good mentor to say, look, here's what we're going, where are you wanting to go? Let's help you get there. And to review these things, retest, and live an inspired living, to inspire others, to get others on this path, share with others, spread the word about, yes, there is another way. So that's what I challenge each of you here today, is that to please spread the word, share with your friends, your family, coworkers, anyone you come in contact with it. Hey, there is a way to gain true health. I challenge you to challenge the status quo. Begin your journey today and regain your youthful energy by asking that ever so simple question: why? So let's redefine healthcare together and put you in the driver's seat. You can share this with others. They can go to thefunctionalperspective.com/why. And it has been wonderful having you all here today. I am super excited to be on this journey with you. Please reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to me, ask questions, and most important, I'm serious when I say please spread the word, because we have chronic illness in our children. It has to change, because our grandchildren, if our children are worse off than us, and our grandchildren are going to be worse off than our children, this has to stop. You all have a wonderful, wonderful day. Take care.